Hi, I'm Dr. Kunj. Today, we'll be doing a session of generative meditation. The first step to doing generative meditation is to find a nice, quiet place. This is going to take at least 5 minutes. Likely your first sessions will be longer until you master the technique. Today's topic will be focusing on dealing with a lot of deadline, a lot of to-do, and time pressures. This was suggested to me by one of the audience members here. And it's important to, pick something that's relevant to your life, something that you want to tap into some insights so that you can better deal with. So let's go ahead and start. Start by closing your eyes. It's very important to turn off the visual cortex of your brain, which occupies up to 70% of the brain connection. We want to pound that part down so that we can really tap into the reserves of the rest of the brain. And now we're going to do about 1 minute of deep breathing. We're going to take an inhalation for about 3 seconds through your nose and then exhale through your mouth. Ideally, we like to double that time, so maybe 6 seconds. Inhale. Exhale. Let's do it 3 more times, and I'll talk while we're doing this. Having a longer exhalation phase activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which relaxes your body and helps focus your mind for the upcoming meditation. If you're having trouble doing a full 6-second exhalation, keep your corners of your mouth not very wide open. It's what's called pursed lips. That will help activate that parasympathetic nervous system, give some vagal stimulation. We did 1 minute of focused breathing. This phase alone gives you a huge portion of the benefits of a generative meditation session. But now let's begin with the actual generative part of this meditation. I'd like to start with motivating ourselves. Why is it important to deal with time pressures when you have a lot to do? Why is that so important to be able to handle that in a great way? So what we're going to do is we're going to think to ourselves, why is that important to us? Some thoughts that may come to mind is that it will help you be less stressed if you're able to deal with all the time pressures. And being less stressed is better for your health, better for your longevity. It's also better for the people around you. If you're less stressed, it'll make them less stressed. Consequently, them being less stressed will make you less stressed. You'll be breaking the feedback cycle and also living a happier life. Now that we've established motivation as to why this is important, let's move on now to actually establishing how we're going to achieve dealing with the timelines and the time pressures involved with having a lot to do in a short period of time. So rather than give you a certain number of rules of how to do that based on my experiences or my knowledge of the world, with generative meditation, we're going to tap into your own insights of how best in your life you have dealt with this. And we're going to do that by having you focus on a time in your life when you felt that you had to deal with a lot of different time pressures, deadlines, had a lot to do. There were just a lot of things on your plate, and you were successful. You handled it pretty darn well. So let's take a few moments or a minute to really focus in on the time in your life. And it could be recent, it could have been yesterday or today, or even years ago from your childhood. But let's focus on a time when you were particularly effective about handling many things that are flying at you, and you just knock them down one at a time. At the end of the tape, you cleared everything. Or it can be you did this over the course of a week or a month. Let's bring that time back into your mind. And now when you think of that time in your life, we're going to start thinking about a couple other times in your life, at least one other time, if not 2 more times in your life where you also got a lot done, beat your time pressures, or at least handled them in the best way possible. So you found one very, very strong one in your life that stands out amongst all other times. And now what we're going to do, let's think of one more time at least. And now what we're going to do with these, hopefully you had at least 2 events in your life. We're going to start thinking about the conditions that were true, that were underlying each of those scenarios. What was true about those times in your life? What did you make happen? What was true about the way that you handled them? How did you behave that enabled you to be successful at handling those time pressures? So again, let's start with that first one that you thought about. What were the conditions that were true about your behavior, about your approach, or even just about the circumstances that allowed you to handle all of these things in a short amount of time? with a lot of time pressure. We're looking for the few rules that you can come up with that characterize those times. Maybe it was that you had really good coaching at that time. You're surrounded by a lot of supportive people. Or you had unstructured free time to knock them down. These are just examples, but ultimately, you can think to yourself what was true in those times. What characterizes those times? To start again, forming a few conditions in that one time that you were the most successful, and then now think about that other time, or those other two times that you accomplished a lot in a little bit of time. Are those conditions that you thought of still true for those? What conditions are true for all of these scenarios, these 2 or 3 scenarios where you got the most done, met the most deadlines, got a lot done in it, despite all the time pressures? Now, hopefully you've come up with a set of 2, 3, 4 criteria that describe what was true about you in that moment, or about the settings of that moment, that environment that you were in. Rules that really characterized and enabled you to get a lot done in a short amount of time with all the time pressures. And that should be one of the best moments of your life where you were able to do this. Let's envision that you're 80 years old, looking back on your life. Would you regret, or would you be proud that you, whenever there was a lot to do on your plate with impending short amount of time, you followed these rules, these few rules that you just came up with, whether it's altering your environment to make sure that you have more of this, whether it was coaching or support or just a narrowly focused goal, a mission, whatever those rules were. Would you be proud to know that you, whenever you had a lot to do, you made sure that these few factors were true about the situation, and that's how you approached and attacked those to do and met them? Would you be pleased to know that this is how you approach those moments all throughout your life, all throughout your 80 years of life, as opposed to being stressed, stressing people out about all these things done? We've extended to our future, and us, would we be satisfied following these rules to get our things done? Next, let's extend it to our present. How can we apply these conditions that we just came up with to our present situation so that we can meet the deadlines, get things done, despite the time pressures in our present? What changes would we make to what we do today or tomorrow or at work? What will you say to your colleague or your boss? How will you use these conditions to shape your day-to-day basis? Let's just take another moment to think about applying these conditions to our life now. And finally, let's see how we may extend these rules we came up to others. How can we use these conditions we came up with to help others? Is it sharing these conditions that have worked for you with them? Is it just getting a lot done and letting them see your example? Is it being a spokesperson for creating these conditions in life in general? And take as much time coming out of the generative meditation as you need for still focusing on one of the steps we did, applying it to your daily life, and to continue to do so. If you're still thinking about your 80-year-old self and applying these rules throughout your entirety of your life, you're wondering how your 80-year-old self would view a life lived that way, then continue to do that. Or if you're thinking about how you can help others follow some of these conditions that have worked for you throughout your life, continue to do that. You should take your own time to come out of the generative meditation. But when you come out of it, hopefully you have now a couple rules that you know have worked for you in your own life. They've been tested by you and have been successful. And so that you know that they work with your own personality, with your own skill set, and intellectual capabilities, educational background. They've already been tested by you, and they're customized and personalized to you. It's not reading a book of an expert that someone has written that may apply to other people or for themselves. These are conditions that you know have worked for you. They come from the best moments of your life when you were able to deal with a lot despite time pressures. And so this generative meditation focuses on that and brings those moments into the present. And just focusing on those is empowering because you brought that moment from your past into your present. And just doing that is empowering. But beyond that, you've now come up with some rules or some conditions that you can replicate from your past into your present to shape your present, so that at any moment you can help your present self be the most effective or meet the deadlines of your time pressures equivalent to the best you've ever done in your life. And what more can we ask for other than to just be the best version of ourselves in the present moment? Thanks for joining me for this generative meditation. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Dr. Kunj. See you next time.